Peace and love. Hello. I hope everyone is well out in the world, wherever you are. I hope that this message finds you well. Let me shut this door before the wind blows it shut and slams it so loud it scares the living bejesus out of everyone in the world. So I'm packing and getting ready to go on a trip, and as I'm taking stock of priorities and going through my daily rituals and rewriting a list of important things and wrapping up tasks, I began to read these affirmations. And as I'm reading them, I feel like they're really important. I'm sorry, I'm fidgeting so hard. My beanbag is it was uneven and created a lot of discomfort under my bum. So I had to even that out so that I could sit like a half normal person in front of the camera instead of half wonky, tilted in one direction. Um, so I at times get these channeled callings to write affirmations. They just come. Feelings come. I'm a channeler. I channel. I channel writing. I channel poetry. I channel all sorts of stuff. I channel familial emotions from people from near and far, people that I've met, stuff that has to do with them personally, stuff that has to do with me, and exchanges and interactions between the two of us. Um, and sometimes just emotions. And I have the ability to channel um what's going on collectively, but that turns on and off in its own form and fashion and on its own will and way. And a really interesting message just came through when I said that that's what the face was for, so pardon that. um Anyways, so I made this stack of affirmations, and I have plenty of stacks of all sorts of things, because I'm constantly in creative mode, and um, trying to do more sharing instead of, I suppose, what you would say hoarding. But I don't necessarily think about coming on and making a video because, um, I don't know. I'm too busy doing other things, but I also have tons of recordings of myself that I make and then never post because I don't know. I don't really. Ooh. Hmm. That's a heavy weight. Uh necessarily feel received at times, or like it's going to matter or make a difference, which is wrong in every sense or form of the word, because that is not even why. um wow, the distortion that has been created. Okay, when I first set out on this journey, I said to myself, I don't even care if I influence just one person or two people or three people or 3 million people. I don't, that does not matter to me, because I will still show up and be myself and create. And by God's good grace, if I have the ability to be able to affect someone in a positive way, or to create a trigger that creates 411, a positive movement or understanding of oneself, to make someone feel seen, felt, heard, um, to bring something to the surface to be able to be expressed, because sometimes we have the ability to just show up in the right spaces and the right conversations to create this exchange of energy, or this change and shift of energy and perspective that allows us the ability to create a higher and deeper inner and outer standing, because in understanding, inner standing, outer standing, all of it, because it simultaneously is just an expansion in all directions at times that it gives us. So anyways, so I created this deck of affirmations, and it's called I'm Sorry, as it will be backwards on your screen because it is a mirror image and not the way that it is meant to look. Or is it? Anyways. So I've heard people have some pretty controversial things to say about affirmations, and oddly enough, almost in every single healing moving some energy, sorry. In a lot of healing, what would you call that? Models, healing, coachings, writings, teachings, reframing and rephrasing are expressions of who we are and who we understand ourselves to be. And also believing them, because that's important too, really creates a lot of powerful, positive changes and trajectories in life in general. Being one who specifically 5 years ago began using the power of positivity in a massive amount of ways. I took one trip to Costa Rica that changed my life in a massive amount of ways because I felt so connected and so inspired to the environment that it literally just changed my whole perception about everything and upheaved my life in some of the most beautiful and profound ways that I will never regret ever at all. I regret, I try to not look back in regret and anger, but also allow myself the liberty to process my feelings and emotions. For the simple fact of, that's part of the journey. Denying ourselves, suppressing ourselves, and gaslighting ourselves into thinking that everything is perfect when it's not is not the answer. I literally was just watching a video about the family that sweeps things under the rug, and witnessing that a lot, or like the way that people just laugh things off instead of ever taking things seriously, which having a sense of humor is important, but also at the same time, being serious about identifying things is extraordinarily important. Otherwise, we're just basically agreeing to a bunch of things in life that actually we're not meant to. So, I'm going to stop rambling and we're going to get to the affirmations. So here we go. Some of these are kind of deep, and they might go in a flow of rhyme because I also am a poet and a writer. And when I was writing them, I tend to write like in a rhythm, which sometimes doesn't maybe make sense to other people, but I don't really know. But it makes sense to me. Either the way the words come out or some sort of rhythm. Maybe you will pick up on that, maybe you won't. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. That's possible too. A lot of insanity going on everywhere all the time. So, let us begin. If you're triggered, I apologize, but it's not a bad thing. It's a positive thing to be triggered, to be able to acknowledge those things and to be able to purge that emotion and have that arise to the conscious awareness in order to purge it, which is one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves in the world. Here we go. I'm sorry for the ways you rejected and hurt yourself. I'm sorry for the ways the world couldn't figure out how to hold you then, or even maybe now. I'm sorry for all the ways you couldn't see yourself. I'm sorry for the ways the world made it hard to figure out you were worthy the whole time. My red-winged blackbird friend is outside the window singing. You might hear him. I'm sorry for misunderstandings in and out, within yourself as well as outside of yourself. I'm sorry for the ways the world couldn't get past the surface. I'm sorry for all the ways no one loved you on purpose. I'm sorry for the invalidation and the ways you were never heard when you'd reach out or scream. I'm sorry for the ways you were left out. I'm sorry for the ways you were neglected. I'm sorry for the ways that you were unsupported. I'm sorry for the fear that was never yours to keep. I'm sorry for all the things you accepted in the ways never meant to be. I'm sorry for all the times you were rejected and the pain that kept creeping in. I'm sorry for the emptiness and no honor or trust in places you were meant to feel safe to open up. I'm sorry for the ways that the world shut you down inside. I'm sorry for the sweet escapes you tried to find. I'm sorry for the darkness and the lonely drunk or sober nights. Drunk on anything, not just alcohol. I'm sorry for the ways the world never held you right. I'm sorry for the heavy, violent hands that had no right to exist. I'm sorry for the names out of context that hit your ears and heart instead of love and kisses. I'm sorry for every breakdown that was never met with love or grace. I'm sorry for every letdown and heartbreak or heartbreak. I'm sorry for every time you lost yourself over anyone else. I'm sorry there was no one there to comfort you or hold your hand. I'm sorry for the ways you ran. I'm sorry for the silence you found when you should have been met with something else. I'm sorry for all the times there was no one to call. I'm sorry for the hypervigilance because of never having a helping hand, a place to land, or a space to safely be upheld. I'm sorry for the places, spaces, and people who rejected you or disrespected you. I'm sorry for everything that hurt that never came with an apology. I'm sorry for your anger and frustrations. I'm sorry for the loneliness and coldness you were often times met with. I'm sorry for the ways you went at it alone. I'm sorry for a world that created pain and tension. I'm sorry for ill-spoken words and all the ill intentions. I'm sorry for the cards you were dealt and the games people played. I'm sorry for the nights you laid awake worried or wondering. I'm sorry for the emptiness on the end of every conversation or phone call. I'm sorry for the nights you cried all alone. I'm sorry for all the ways you felt you weren't enough. I'm sorry for the ways you gave up. 444. I'm sorry for the times there was no one to hold you. I'm sorry for the times you felt all alone. I'm sorry for the places I stuck around too long. I'm sorry all the things I didn't know till now and didn't know I was wrong. So, those are my I'm sorry affirmations, and hopefully you have enjoyed them. And maybe uh just maybe they will create a change in perspective about something or allow something to arise. Um some of them were very powerfully heartfelt when I wrote them. Um Having the ability to empathize and imagine someone else's pain, um as though it's my own, is somewhere in between a curse and a superpower. And it's something that I don't really take lightly and something that I don't really express to people. Um, and something that I thought was normal in the identity of humans, and only in the course of the last 5 to 7 years did I begin to realize and understand that a lot of the people that were around me were pretty much the opposite of what I was. And that was part of the reason why I couldn't understand um, why life felt so difficult. Something that it was never supposed to be, but also yes. Because through experiencing the opposite things of what we don't want or what we don't desire, it gives us the ability to understand what we do and also to understand what we're worthy of. When we choose to wait, when we choose to not accept 1717 less than we deserve or we desire, when we don't settle. There's this really powerful singer, her name is Vera Blue. She sings this song called Settle, and a lot of other really beautiful songs too, but that one in particular really ignites my fire to feel strong in independence as a woman. And as we grow, just as people in general, and we learn, because we don't come here with an instruction booklet or a manual that says this is the way to do life, and some of us end up a little more lost than others, and some stay lost forever and others find their way. And when I listen to that song, it creates a really deep understanding about how important it is to have awareness and connection to ourselves, honesty with ourselves. And do our best to create a life of intention through feeling, through awareness, and to not be afraid to speak our minds um, and express our feelings, because those things that we allow to stagnate or be repressed becomes the dis-ease that eats away at our identities. It becomes the many forms of energetic disruption within our physical bodies. Um, I can't even begin to list the infiniteness, but Cancer is the biggest one of them. When we choose not to use our voices, our bodies, our minds, and our emotions to identify and express correctly, that stagnates and it stays and festers in different body parts in different ways, depending on what sort of expression we're denying ourselves. And this is why it's important to understand, our actions, and to ask ourselves and be intentional about the way we interact with ourselves, instead of feeding narratives like, am I eating because I'm hungry, or am I eating because I'm bored, because I'm lonely, because I'm sad, because I'm hormonal and I'm PMSing? Maybe I need to, understand more deeply about my experience, and I'm the only one that knows. Through asking myself, I'm going to be able to identify or re-identify my story and say, you know what, I'm not really hungry. Maybe I'm just thirsty. Let me drink some water and then take a walk, or, sit out in the fresh air. We spend a lot of time indoors in life. And when we spend a lot of time under false lighting, fake lighting, and not allowing ourselves to be aired out and cleansed by the fresh air, and we don't get our energy moving and expressing in the ways, whether that be verbally, tasking, doing, but also using power to do so, that stagnates within our bodies. And it doesn't matter how well we eat or what we do to exercise it off. It is sometimes unresolved emotions that need to be expressed, journaled, raged out, affirmed out. Because sometimes through those affirmations, we have the ability to create pathways into something deeper, something different, a different understanding. To be like, oh, wow, that just brought up, a conversation I had with my mom when I was 14, or, an interaction that I had with the neighbor when I was, 23, and I didn't say how I felt, and I just, let someone, reject me or detest me, or completely, there's a word that I want, and I was literally just having this story with myself the other day, because I've had a very interesting life, and learned very early on that, people that don't manage their emotions or their pain or understand their own stories just try to they unknowingly recreate that story for other people and make them a part of the story that doesn't even have anything to do with them. And that's unfortunate. And that's why our healing is important. Our awareness is important. Intentionally connecting to our bodies, tapping, touching, holding ourselves, connecting to stories. How did you feel when you were a kid? I have this metaphysical anatomy book that, whenever I feel energy moving, stagnant, stuck, which I move energy, I'm a light worker, I move energy anyway, so I'm constantly having energy flowing, releasing, transmuting out of my right hand, constantly releasing. Some of that being creative energy, but some of it also being stories, other people's stories, recognizing, realizing, like, get out, release, through witnessing, release. And understanding the importance of that. The movement of energy is important. And thank you to someone whose YouTube video that I watched the other day, Color Me Crazy. I love him. He's incredible. He was talking about a swamp. That is actually a narrative that's come up often in the course of the last 3 years, because I sort of lost my way, and it created this sort of swampy water. of energy, but that was also part of my truth of, uh, death and rebirth, which I've experienced many times in this life, but this time a lot harder, and trying to reassimilate back into something outside of societal narratives has been interesting. Um, Basically, more or less finding deeper value in myself, in my natural affinity and abilities, and trusting in them instead of forcing myself into constructs that have constantly stifled me, blocked me, and made me feel uncomfortable. They have the ability to hold space for me for a short period of time, but then I reach a ceiling, a peak, and then I'm like, now I got to go back down and start all over and then build back up again. And in certain environments, that gets very daunting. And maybe someone else can identify with that also. Um, but it's important for us to understand ourselves, understand who we are, understand what we're doing here, to give life meaning in all different ways, because it can be as simple as, I enjoy waking up every morning and going for a walk and watching the sunrise. Maybe having a cup of coffee with that. Maybe not. Moving my body immediately, being excited for the day, running to the sun. Yay! I get to watch the sun come up. What is it going to look like? What am I going to see? Am I going to meet somebody? Am I going to talk to a stranger? Is it going to be cold? Is it going to rain? Is it going to be cloudy? Is the water going to be moving? So on and so forth. Simple things like that allow us to be able to, pull ourselves into a moment, to be present with ourselves, allow emotion to arise. Because sometimes in a moment like that, emotion can arise in really beautiful ways, and then allow us to start beginning to move energy in really beautiful ways, and to get more in tune with ourselves. It's a little bit of my experiences, journaling and expressing energy, creating affirmations, moving energy. I stopped moving energy and I died. Not literally, but metaphysically. And have slowly watched this rebirth upturn. And if you watch any of my other videos, you can literally see the difference in my energy right now than it has ever been in the past 3 years that I've tried to create videos. This one right here, deal breaker. It's completely different. And, hopefully it stays this way, but maybe it won't. Who knows? We never know what a life is going to bring us. And, we have to be open to embrace that in any form or way. But more or less, it's the challenge to focus ourselves onto honesty. Because we cannot carry shame and guilt or disgust for ourselves and pretend that it's something else. And pretend that we're, comfortable in our skin, which is the only place we're meant to feel comfortable. And if we're not comfortable there, there's no environment, relationship, person, or place that is going to make us feel comfortable, because that is not a place that we find outside of ourselves. It's something that we find within ourselves, that we cultivate a relationship, so that when we step into any place or space, it's not about, are people going to like me? It's about, am I showing up as my true self? I don't need to be comfortable, because part of life is being uncomfortable. Am I being true to myself? Am I, am I going to like these people? Because I value myself so much that it not in an arrogant way, in a sense of being like, I don't need anybody to like me, because I'm going to show up and be myself regardless. It doesn't matter if I meet someone, if I make friends, if something magical happens. That's a bonus. We make our own magic with how we perceive. Some of the most magical moments that I've had in life have been alone. And not saying that I haven't shared magical moments with other people, but we make our own magic, because it's all about our own perspective of what we're experiencing and reframing that. And as they say, in any place or space in life, honesty is the best policy on the outside. So why would it not be on the inside of ourselves, to be honest with our stories about how we felt growing up, what we felt growing up. what we feel now, presently, what needs to be expressed. In this metaphysical anatomy book, every time you go to look at something, like, oh, my ear is twinging. Ooh, I should probably look that up, actually. My ear has been twinging on the inside. Both ears, but mostly this one. And I'm like, something's undoing itself. This is like a lifetime thing, because part of my karma is not being able to hear people. Literally getting tinnitus and not being able to hear people because I cannot focus on them, or because like I'm blocked and I'm just like, no. Part of that also being very connected to our hearts, because the word heart has the word hear. It's through our ears that we hear love or not, and that we receive truth or not. Through our heart is where we receive. Through our ears is where we receive. Through our eyes is where we receive. Through our nose is where we receive. Through our mouths is where we receive. Through our hands is where we receive. All of that connecting and correlating with this area. Because it all goes through this area. It's all about this area right here. What are we taking in? What are we receiving? You know? And we receive so much information, whether we're conscious of it or not, in every second. Billions of megabytes. Not billions, but a lot. Per second. And it's important for us to be able to attune to ourselves, be present with ourselves, and ask ourselves, how are we really feeling? What are we really experiencing? Are we really happy, or are we just pretending to be? So, I think I'm done talking. I have things to do. Or maybe I'm just going to go sit outside or take a walk. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you've made it this far. If not, that's fine too. 3, 2, 1. Hopefully this is inspiring, conspiring, reflective, maybe defective. I don't know. Creating the ability to create introspection, really, is all that it is. And not to purposely create a trigger to be like, but to, to be triggered is actually a gift. It's a gift, even though it doesn't feel like it. It's a gift that makes us think, and it might not be immediately. It might be a day later. It might be 2 days later. It might be 3 days later. It might be 3 months later. It might be 3 years later. Who knows? It depends on how we process things, how consciously aware we are, and how much we pay attention or reflect on life, to go back to situations or conversations and be like, I see the underlying energy in that, and I'm grateful for it. Oh my Lord, and there it goes. Interesting. What is it? Okay, strange, whatever. Anyways, for whatever reason, Florida, for my whole life, has come up in some weird way, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm gonna die there. Maybe I'm gonna retire there. Maybe I'm supposed to be there. I don't know. And I've gone there several times in the course of the last 5 years, which is strange, because I thought I was gonna die there, truly, which is probably what was happening. Time is not linear. Which was probably what was happening. I was being stalked by some nocturnal thing that made literally every hair on my body stand up, and I literally held my selenite stick and was praying in my mind the whole time, and I was just like, if I'm about to die, I just let it happen. I literally wasn't breathing. I stopped breathing for probably 3 hours because something was clicking, and making strange noises outside my tent, and I was sleeping in the middle of I was sleeping in the middle of the swamp all by myself in the middle of the forest in the middle of Florida. Oh wow. Maybe that's where I died, and I'm reclaiming that piece of myself right now. Ooh, oh. Interesting. Oh, because there was a farmer that died there, or almost died there. He almost got killed by something in the jungle. I was reading the story about it, and I was like, oh, that's creepy and scary and eerie. He didn't die. Everyone thought he was crazy when he came out. And I was like, interesting. Anyways, that's my story. Hopefully this is inspirational. That's it. That's all I have to say. Now that I've yammered on for so long. May this find you where it is meant to land. And I am sending peace and love and hopes for, even though something negative might come up, it being able to be alchemized and transformed into something positive and a higher perspective. Peace and love. Be well.